I'll make a motion for the approval of the regular meeting minutes dated October 12th, 2022.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Can I get a motion for the special meeting of November 1st?
Make a motion to approve the special meeting of November 1st, 2022.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Student recognition. Well, I'm going to come back with this.
The fifth grade team has selected Kaylor Bella as the fifth grade student of the month for November. Kaylor is extremely hardworking, thoughtful student who puts forth tremendous effort in everything he does. He is always the first to ask clarifying questions, participate in class discussions, and lend a helping hand when needed. Kaylor has enjoyed having increased independence this year. He thinks that being able to try concepts and manage his work independently has made him a stronger student. His favorite subject since third grade has been math. Kaylor is in his second year as a member of the school band playing trombone. Outside of school, Kaylor enjoys skiing, playing with friends, and playing soccer for the town's U12 team. When he grows up, he'd like to be an electrical or mechanical engineer, as he enjoys understanding the processes behind electrical currents and simple machines. Kaylor's outstanding work ethic makes him an excellent choice for Student of the Month.
Any of the members of the school committee want to ask Kaylor any questions?
Well, I'd like to say, Caleb, congratulations. This is quite the honor. And some of the awesome things your teachers wrote about you, the fact that you like to participate in class discussions and ask clarifying questions, that's role model type behavior. That's some impressive stuff. Because you're doing that, you're not just helping yourself, you're helping the whole class, right? You're helping the class move along and learn. And maybe there's some other students that maybe are a little too shy to ask a question. So you're helping them out. And so that's pretty awesome stuff. So being a role model in the 5th grade, I hope you continue to do all these awesome things and you bring it up here to the middle school next year. So congratulations, my dude.
Congratulations.
Good evening, folks. Tonight we will be honoring our middle school student of the month first. I'd like to welcome up grade 7 student Melina Lamb. Thank you, Melina. Melina is an excellent student in all of her classes in grade 7. Her teacher's words are that she is hardworking, diligent, conscientious, and respectful each day and every day in class. She works well both in groups and independently. She's always polite with her teachers and classmates. We'd say that Melina is a model student who doesn't take any days off. She works hard, takes careful notes. She's neat and organized, respectful, just a pleasure to have in all of her classes. Outside of class, Melina enjoys reading adventure books and stories. She's a member of the Girl Scout, her troops through the town of Shrewsbury. Her favorite holidays are Halloween and Christmas, and her favorite movies are the Marvel superhero movies. She's a free kid, and we're very proud of her. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Melina.
Hi, Melina. How are you? 7th grade? Favorite class right now? Math, Mr. Coggins. He's a pretty good teacher. How was Mr. Walker last year?
Good.
Yeah, got you ready for math this year.
Yeah.
You like to read?
Yeah.
You're reading anything interesting right now?
Okay. Nice. And let's see, so 7th grade ELA is Miss McHugh, right? So are you reading anything in your ELA class that maybe you wouldn't choose to read normally that you like?
Not at the moment, and I would kind of do
Short
short stories.
stories? Okay. And you're a Girl Scout? Yeah. Have you done that for a long time?
Yes.
Yeah. You guys start selling cookies soon? Pretty soon? Excellent. Make sure you come to the
Hit us
next
up.
school committee meeting, right? Bring the cookie order form. And Marvel superhero movies, have you watched all of them?
Yeah.
Favorite one? Uh-oh, put you on the spot. Is it a tough one, Mr.? I haven't seen any of them, so
Are you gonna
I
see
need a
Wakanda Forever this
recommendation.
weekend?
Great.
Are you gonna go see the new Black Panther?
Maybe.
Maybe not. All right. So, but do I need to check out a Marvel superhero movie?
Yeah.
All right, I'll put it on the list. Thank you for coming tonight. Congratulations. Nice job.
Nice job.
Right? My goodness.
Easy.
I highly recommend Captain Marvel. For a woman, it's very good. We are next very proud to award our High School Student of the Month to grade 11 student Megan Borg. For those of you who recognize Megan, she was the recipient of this award back in her freshman year, and is one of our major class leaders. She has achieved the top grade at the moment in her 11th grade honors English class. She works hard as the president of the student council and is a strong leader within the junior class. She's active in the drama club, which she has done since middle school, and she does outside theater work with the Barry Players Group. She's currently in Seussical. She spends a lot of time supporting her classmates and being a leader within the school while still maintaining top grades in all subjects. She recently was involved in the Trick or Treat for Cans initiative, which helped raise supplies for the Worcester County Food Bank. She volunteers to read our morning announcements every day, which really starts our day off on a very positive and cheerful note. You may not know this because Megan comes across as kind of shy, but one day she will be a film actress, and she hopes to study for that role in a college, either in California, in Atlanta, or in New York City. She's an outstanding student, conscientious, diligent, and when she's not doing all those incredible things, she enjoys horseback riding in her spare time. She's a great one. Megan Borg, congratulations.
Well, Megan, I'm very familiar with your family. You guys are great public servants to the entire school community, and you're following the lead of your sister, your mom, and your dad. And I know you're such a huge part of this. I'm so glad we still have it for another year here in West Boylston. And so when you do become that famous actress, just don't forget about us. Make sure you come back. I just want to say congratulations. You, again, talk about role models. I think your name is right next to that in the dictionary. So congratulations. We're very, very proud of you.
Thank you. I'm going to put you on the spot. I know Megan for a long time, and it has been a pleasure to watch you grow up and how far you've come. I'm curious as to what your favorite subject is this year.
Currently it's chemistry.
Is it? Good for you. Good for you. I am looking forward to seeing you in the play, you and your sister. Yeah. That's awesome. I'm so proud of you. You're not even my kid. I'm so proud of you. Well done. Well done, my friend.
Nice job, Megan.
Next, we'll do an update from our student advisory council. Brooke.
Alright, good evening everyone. My name is Annabelle Anand. I'm the freshman class president.
Just a quick bio about me. For student activities, I'm involved in the acapella club, the jazz band, volleyball club, game club, Italian honor society, and the student council. This month, student council has collected about 500 tons of food through the trick-or-treating and trunk-or-treating for cans, as said, we donate those to the Worcester County Food Bank. Upcoming for student council will be the annual giving tree that will be put together as usual past November break. The freshman class just held their first fundraiser clothing drive and collected almost $500. This will go towards our class funds. The junior class is in the process of planning and fundraising for prom as per usual and just booked a venue for the upcoming dance in the spring. The senior class is in the process of planning a fundraiser and hosted a successful Halloween dance for the middle schoolers who contributed to their class funds as well. An update on fall sports. Girls soccer played a close game at Georgetown in the state tournament of 32 and lost after a hard effort. Best of luck to them in the future. Boys soccer lost a close game after an excellent season to Whitesville Christian Academy, and most members on the team will be returning for another season next year. Cheer is going to regionals, so best of luck to them. They'll be held at Shrewsbury High in the upcoming week or two. Football just finished their season ranked #1 in the state, so huge congratulations to them. They'll be playing Lacona Friday night in the state quarterfinals this Friday at 7 p.m.
6 p.m. now.
6 p.m. Oh, update. Thank you, Mr. Boyer. In the performance department, the jazz band is currently preparing for the open mic night on December 9th and the high school concert, thanks to Mr. Stefanelli for that. The acapella club is also preparing for these two events, thanks to Mr. Siki. Fall Play, A Christmas Carol, directed by Mrs. Heward, will be December 3rd and 4th with one show on Friday and 2 shows on the Saturday. For honor societies, National Honor Society began their tutoring club this week for both middle and high school students, and they had a pretty good turnout, so best of luck to them. Thank you for that. National Art Honor Society is in the process of putting together the yearly calendar, and the National French and Spanish Honor Societies are in the planning stages of trips this winter for Puerto Rico and Quebec. Triumph Music Honor Society has elected their officers and finalized information for the annual New York trip to see Wicked on Broadway this spring. That's very exciting. They are also working hard to organize the annual open mic night on December 9th. DECA, advising Mr. Palmy, is working on the school store as well as preparing for competitions this winter, both individually and as a team. The Environmental Club is looking into new partnerships with, I believe they contacted USDA, so that's pretty exciting, as well as a possible compost bin, so keep an eye out for updates on that. And finally, the Yearbook Club has yearbooks open to order, and updates on that will come soon. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Excellent, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great job.
Nice job.
Great.
Next, I'd just like to acknowledge our camera crew. Thank you very much. Mrs. Pratt, and our minutes. And we will go to our highlight on schools, which is Major Edwards and Castle.
On the screen, is it sideways?
This, yeah.
Just because everything's sideways? Is that possible? Is it possible to show it up there just because it's sideways on their screen? If you guys have it, we're going to Oh, you do?
Yeah, we're good.
Apologies.
It's all good.
I saw it on shared screen and I was thinking,
We're okay.
great. So thanks for the opportunity to share some of the results for 3 through 5 MCAS scores for our Major Edwards. We saw a lot of growth this year, and I think there's some areas that we can still continue to improve on moving forward. At the last school committee meeting, Mr. Maher reported some of the results we saw in grades 3 through 8 and how we compared to the overall performance of the state and some of the local districts. Some of the trends that were identified were that the average ELA scores for both for West Boylston and the state decreased overall. Average math scores did increase, and our science and technology did have some slight increases as well across the district and for the state. Also mentioned was the emphasis on early literacy with a focus on writing due to the decrease in student performance, and all subject areas have yet to reach pre-pandemic levels. So tonight we wanted to provide you just a snapshot of how grades 3 through 5 did at Major Edwards. We'd like to highlight student performance in comparison to the state, how these results compare to student performance in past years. And we want to identify key areas where students had the most growth and the areas where students fell short, and which we can focus on more in our day-to-day instruction. So in looking at grade 3, when we look at grade 3 ELA and math scores, we notice that students perform similarly with the state when combining all three, exceeding, meeting, and partially meeting expectations and percentages. However, the district had an overall decrease from 2021's third grade scores. In ELA, we combined 51% of our students either exceeded or met expectations compared to 44% of the state. One area that we'll be focusing on, which was comparable to the state, was the increase in students not meeting expectations, which was at 17% compared to the state's 15%. In math, when combined, 40% of our students either exceeded or met expectations compared to 41% of the state. Although 19% of our students did not meet expectations, the percentages are still less than the state's 20%. If you flip to the next page, we'll take a look at the comparison third grade ELA 22 results to the 2021 and 2019 results. You can see that the graph is a good representation of the overall impact from the pandemic. You will notice decreases in almost every category and an increase in the number of students not meeting expectations, which we were expecting. One thing to remember is that this group of students did have the interrupted first grade year and interrupted second grade year. I think it'll be interesting to see whether or not we increase or decrease with the current third grade, as they have been identified as one of the grades most heavily impacted by the pandemic. Next in your packet, you will find the school's item analysis summary, which gives you information on each standard and the percentage of possible points that could be achieved by the district and the state for each item number of the assessment. So I handed a second packet which has the actual standards with the numbers, and then we're going to look at the graph, item analysis graph. The graph shown correlates to the test item analysis summary, as I just explained. And the graph provides a visual of how students perform compared to the state, areas where we fell a little bit short, and areas where we were a little bit above. In ELA, we will be focusing on a few key standards where we fell short. And on the next page, we kind of highlighted some areas for progress and areas for growth. I'm not going to read all the standards to you, but you can take a look at them. If there's any questions, let me know. And then when we were looking at the third grade math results, the areas where we're going to take a closer look at are the decrease in students meeting expectations and the increase of students that are not meeting expectations in 2022, which was up another 4% from 2021. One positive thing to mention is that we did see a 7% increase in students exceeding expectations. And on the next page, after reviewing the test item analysis for math, we found that there was a few standards that we need a little bit more review and planning instruction for our current fourth grade and third grade this year, which are listed on the next page. And as you can see, we also did have some higher points in some of those standards as well. Let's have a snapshot of grade 3 to know if there's any questions before we move on to grade 4. So we're looking at grade 4 for ELA and math results. Our students did quite well when compared to the state. In ELA, when combined, 55% of our students either exceeded or met expectations compared to the 38% of the state. A small percentage, 5%, did not meet expectations compared to the state's 16%. In math, when combined, we had a total of 68%, which was a 19% increase from last year, of our students either exceeding or meeting expectations compared to the state's 43% of the state. Only 5% of our students did not meet expectations compared to the state's 17%, which is a decrease of 9% from last year where we had 14% not meeting expectations. So that was some nice growth there. When comparing the fourth grade ELA results to 2021 on the next page, you will see that the percentage of meeting expectations decreased by 10%, but the partially meeting expectations, which is in yellow, went up about 10%. And one interesting thing that we noted, that this grade level performed almost exactly as they did in 2021 in ELA. So we had 11% exceeding and 85% total meeting or partially meeting, just with slightly different percentages. And on the next page, we have item analysis for fourth grade ELA. And there were only a few areas where students performed at or below the state scores. Some of those standards that we will be highlighting are on the next page. Again, we looked at some of the areas where we really did well, and then areas where a little bit of growth is needed. When looking at our fourth grade math results for 2021, we had some great scores across the board, with percentages going up 6% for exceeding expectations, a 13% increase in meeting expectations for the meeting expectations, and a 9% drop in students not meeting expectations. And we took a little closer look at the math analysis. You can see a real visual of how much higher percentages were than compared to the state. We were able to determine which standards we need to focus on, and you know, as you can see in the graph, there's just a lot of high points there, which is awesome to see. Of course, there's always an area for improvement, so we're taking a look at some of the ones that dropped a little bit below the state average to identify those areas. Any questions about fourth grade?
Alex, it's glaring just how impressive
Yeah.
fourth grade did.
Yeah.
Their growth in comparison to third grade. So we understand obviously that first grade year is so important, you know, for our students getting into, you know, after kindergarten, really hitting it. And I think we see, you know, the deficits that are there for the third graders. So we can only assume that there's a lot of kind of remedial help happening, right, for our third graders. So
Yeah, I think also remember that the third grade, the current third grade that took that test had not really had experience really alone, just because they were new to the MCAS, but also just a different kind of type of public the last couple of years before that too as well.
Is third grade still on paper?
No, they took it on. And actually in grade 5 we saw also some great increases as well. If you look at that next section. All right, here we go. Grade 5. So moving on to fifth grade ELA math and science and technology. In ELA, we combined for 44% of our students either exceeded or met expectations compared to 41% of the state, and 11% did not meet expectations compared to the 13% of the state. But in math, again, similar to fourth grade, we had 61% of our students either exceeded or met expectations compared to 36% of the state. And additionally, only 5% of our students did not meet expectations compared to the state's 16%. And then looking at science and technology, we saw good scores as well. And combined, we had 61% of our students either exceeding or meeting expectations compared to the state's 43%. And although 8% of our students did not meet expectations, it's still far less than the state's 18%. And then taking a look at how we compare to ourselves, you will notice a 12% decrease in students meeting expectations with for ELA, with a 14% increase in students partially meeting expectations. When looking at how the class performed in fourth grade last year, you will see different percentages, but again, it was almost similar. 84% of students either met or partially met expectations in ELA. However, we did see a little decrease in the exceeding and an increase in some of the students that are not meeting expectations. And when you look at that graph, you'll see it's pretty tight with the state average. But again, no points that were below, either at or a little bit above the state average. And then when we take a look at math, compare math results of 2021, we're similar to fourth grade math. We had some great scores. We saw increases in both meeting expectations and the partial meeting expectations and the exceeding expectations. That was great to see as well. And when you review the test item analysis for math, we're able to really see how we did compared, and these numbers also jumped like the fourth grade math. It was awesome to see. So I think we only had a very few points that fell on the state average, but most of them were either a little bit above or substantially above. And if you take a look at that next chart, like we had some that were plus 32, plus 34, plus 35, which is awesome. And some of the areas of growth were just a little bit below the state average, which was really nice to see.
You mentioned we have an area of growth, we were still plus.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. In fifth grade science and technology, we noticed slight increases and decreases in all areas, but essentially very similar results from the previous year, which I think speaks a lot to the consistency that we're getting in that area, which was also a plus. When you're looking at the test item analysis, there were a few standards that were below the state average. And overall, the possible points were pretty close to the state average or above. Again, a few areas that we will focus on are on that next page. But again, we had plus 29, plus 28, plus 17, some of the higher points, and a few that were a little bit below the state average. So, any questions about fifth grade?
Any questions about us overall?
Yes. Just in closing, I just want to say overall we had a lot to be proud of with the MCAS scores. We made solid improvements in math compared to the 2021 school year results. Kind of look forward to seeing how year 2 and year 3 with big ideas will go. Again, this was a new math program that we implemented last year. And I also want to just give a quick highlight to Renee Bertolini in 5th grade, Liz LeMay in 4th grade, and Rose Vendetto, who has the math support, contributing to a lot of this great growth in math. There's always areas, as I mentioned before, to improve for each subject. Our teachers have continued to provide consistent and effective instruction, which translates to why we're staying right at the average of the state and or a little bit above. So we look forward to seeing what else we can improve on for this year. Happy to answer any questions.
Thanks.
Well done, Alex. Thank you.
All right, we can move on to a presentation about the lacrosse program. Thank you.
My name is Annelle Johnson. I spoke just briefly in the last month, if you recall. I'm here with Lindsay Mont and Kenterio. We all have involvement with the Guardians lacrosse program, which is currently practicing here in town. And we have been working with the Guardians and with a bunch of other field programs to establish the possibility of bringing lacrosse into the middle school and into the high school. We did create this little PowerPoint for you. It has been submitted through the AD. I've also with the principals before, and now it's here. Just a little information about lacrosse. I don't know how many of you are familiar with lacrosse. It's actually the fastest growing sport in the United States. There's about 300,000 kids playing lacrosse right now, and it's spreading throughout the country. It used to be it's just in the South, it used to be just in the West, now it's everywhere. It's trickling down from Canada, people are playing in the winter. It's box lacrosse, basically hockey on grass. It's pretty fun. Our program has grown exponentially. When we first started, or at least when my family first started, most of the players were actually Boylston kids. Now the program is predominantly West Boylston kids. So there's definitely a lot of interest locally. The expansion of the club system, which if anyone can play hockey, you all know how the clubs work. Everyone has a club, they play essentially, and it's very competitive. The clubs that have grown just in Central Mass in the last 5 years has been amazing as well, including throughout all of New England. So there's definitely a lot of interest. Here in town, we have about 42 kids currently playing with the Guardians in ages 1 through 8. In grades 1 through 8. The concentration of those students are in 3 through 6 grades, which bodes well that will be able to sustain the program for some time with the following younger kids coming in. I can tell you, the kids who are playing now all have younger siblings who are dragging that stick around and looking to play. So there's definitely encouraging numbers coming up through the ranks as well. As far as what we've done for the infrastructure of the sport, we do have a coach, Kevin McNamara, his information is here, who has volunteered his time. So we do already have coaches in place, which would be great. Works with the Guardian staff already, who are also willing to volunteer, as well as parents who are on the board and work with the other clubs. So we have some pretty knowledgeable people willing to volunteer their time here. We do have all of the kids already playing together, so they all do know each other. As far as the fields, there's always a big question here in town, where are we going to play, where are we going to play? The Guardians actually already play here on our football field. So the lining is already there. The Guardians program is actually nicely offered to let the school use their goals. So we wouldn't have to do anything with that, they're already here. Additionally, we can practice up on the practice field up there, and not miss the football field every single day, which is nice. So there's some nice flexibility with the fields that we have right now. As far as equipment, which is always a big expense for programs, most of the kids, well, all of the kids, the 42 kids plus who are currently playing, already have equipment. And the equipment consists of helmets, chest pad, elbow pads, gloves, cleats, and most of the kids already have those. Oh, obviously a stick, great. Those would be individually bought. There are multiple programs and grants which we have investigated and reached out to, and actually benefit from at the Guardians. Programs like the Belichick Fund, the MBYLL, which is the Youth Lacrosse Association for the state. They have all kinds of grants for programs just starting that would be willing to either donate equipment or donate funds to get equipment. So we would be able to negate some of the cost of starting up a player. I think the expense, if I remember correctly, going to Dick's Sporting Goods and getting the starter package, it was a couple $100 to lay out, and luckily the equipment grows with the kids for several years. So it's not like yearly you're going to buy that helmet or yearly you're going to buy that chest pad. Those things, kids grow fast, but these things do last 2 or 3 seasons, so hopefully the outlay money isn't too bad. Additionally, we did some research about towns that would be prospective opponents, if you will. You would be surprised, I was actually surprised doing the research, how many programs actually co-op with other programs. And I know co-op is always like, oh, we don't want to co-op, we want to have our own program, which is fine. But there is a lot of schools who are trying to start their programs, trying using the co-op system. There are towns near us, Ayr, Bromfield, all already within our league that we play. Maynard, Hudson, they all have programs established already. We can also, because we would start with a JV team only, and potentially no cuts, we have plenty of kids to play. We could reach out to teams like Grafton, Shrewsbury, Wachusett. They're much bigger than us, but since we're on the JV level and we're sparking the interest and they're local, it could work for us to play with them. And a lot of these kids play together in the spring season for their clubs, which only goes, the Guardians goes only to 8th grade. So they already know each other and play together throughout the year anyway. So it's kind of nice that they'd be able to get to start to go that way. So we also are looking to start, if possible, this spring.
Anybody have any questions or concerns?
Just a few things from someone who has gone through this process with boys soccer.
Sure.
So, first of all, I think it's a great idea. Because I think that there needs to be an option other than baseball in the spring. I mean, baseball is a slow sport. A lot of kids aren't playing anymore. I know our own program, the numbers are way down for baseball. So this gives a different option for kids, and if you guys already have that many kids, how many players are on a field for lacrosse? 10? Thank you. Couple of things that I would say, so, you know, when we started out the soccer, bringing boys soccer here, because we co-opted with Tohoto for years, and I saw our kids coming up with a strong program in the town and said, listen, we have our own kids that want to play here, and we can field a team. So we started with a middle school team. So once that got going and things were rolling along and kids started playing, then we eventually brought up a varsity team. I wouldn't necessarily say that you guys are responsible for finding grants for equipment, only because we don't, kids who want to play baseball, we don't buy their bats for them.
Sure.
We don't buy cleats and shin guards for the soccer players or whatever. So, I mean, if that would take one thing off of what you guys are trying to do, my feeling is if kids want to play a sport or try out, part of the responsibility is having the equipment.
Not to interrupt, I do
No.
agree with you. I think
Yep.
that's great. And like I said, all of our kids already have equipment. We also have, in the spring, we also have like equipment swaps. Like
Yep.
I've outgrown these, this works. We searched out the grants only because sometimes you need to subsidize. You know, you have kids who want to play. We don't want to exclude anyone because they can't afford a stick.
Sure.
So we just wanted to have those as options, if necessary. And just on your comment about baseball, I know it always runs through people's head, oh, it's the option against baseball. Just so you know, there's only 2 kids who play baseball.
I don't think it's
and there's 42.
against. I think
No.
it's a nice option to have
But it-
something else.
But it is always a question, like, is this because we do have dwindling numbers in other sports? You don't want to necessarily dilute the pool and pull from those already existing sports. So when we did our research, at this point, the kids who are in the current middle school and high school have really already chosen their sport, and they're not baseball players. So we wouldn't be diluting the baseball or any other spring sports, which is always a big concern when starting a new sport.
That, and the only other thing that I would say that we would need to watch is the Title IX, making sure that there are opportunities for female athletes
Sure.
to also have
So
a real play.
we actually thought of that as well. So in conversations with the athletic department, there are 2 options regarding Title IX. One of the options was girls golf. Women's golf. I'm not sure.
I brought that up at one point.
Right, that there's been some interest in the women's golf. The other thing is, under the rules, girls can play in the boys lacrosse program. So there is nothing saying that a girl couldn't play on our JV team. So we actually have girls playing right now in the Guardians program with boys. So that certainly is an option as well, which would satisfy the Title IX
So-
requirement.
Does that, just having an option, does it satisfy it versus not having a participant?
I believe it.
So if you had the option to have a golf team, for example,
Yep.
but you didn't have a golf team because there wasn't enough people, does that satisfy the need?
Does anyone want to answer?
Amy, do you know the answer to that?
So I did actually just got off the phone with someone from the NIA. We have to offer both, boys and girls lacrosse. We can't offer golf instead, we would need to offer both.
Oh, it has to be the same sport?
Yes. If
Yeah,
we're
we
starting
offer
a program,
both.
we need to offer both.
So offering both or allowing girls to play on the boys' team?
He said offering both. I could call him again and get clarification on that, but I was just.
So if
on
we
the phone.
offered it, but there wasn't enough interest, that's okay?
He said yes, but we're also, right now, we are in a co-op for this spring that we can't break.
Co-op for what?
For boys lacrosse.
With who?
With Hudson, we're in a 2-year co-op that we are in.
Oh, I didn't realize we were.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
you did one player.
Is it just one player?
It was one player last year, but we're in a 2-year co-op that we can't.
This is the second year.
This is our second year of the 2-year co-op. The spring schedules are also done, so we can't start for this spring. Everything, our spring
So-
schedules are set.
Can I ask if we wanted to try to do something this spring, could it be more like a club? Yeah, like a club sport this spring, just to
We
gauge
can try to
interest?
do a club, I can't guarantee who I'll get to play them. I mean, we can try to do a club, but I can't guarantee that I.
That you would have other people be interested in playing
So
us?
before we go too much into this year, my biggest concern this year is budget
Yes,
and
the buses.
buses and
Buses are
referees and
Yeah.
other stuff outside of uniforms. I actually, uniforms like in equipment, I have a bit of concern about the equipment part of it from like a fairness perspective. Now, I would have to say that we don't have hockey, we do offer it through co-op, and hockey players buy their own stuff. Football players don't. So would lacrosse players be expected to buy their own stuff, or would it be expected that they don't have to? I'm just looking from a fairness perspective, like, you know, they all pay the same fees, and you should expect a similar type of service, I would think.
So that's why we looked into the Belichick Fund, because that's really one of the funds that they really focus on getting equipment out to new programs. So we could reach out to them and say, hey, we're a new program, and the Guardians actually did this, and the Guardians received a fair amount of equipment, a lot of equipment, actually, and we could do that for this program as well. And if, you know, like I said, more of a subsidy, because there will be students who have their own equipment and don't need equipment. So that equipment can sit and wait for someone who does need it, and not exclude anyone who doesn't have equipment or doesn't want to purchase equipment because it's their first time trying, whatever it may be. So there certainly is that option.
There'll be some rules as to that their helmets have to match. When you get into the high school sport, things have to match. So it may not, I get that they have their own things, but it may be that we have to purchase them and supply them. Or at least the helmets and things that are visible. Like we can't go to a football game and have different ones on. They all have to be that same painted, that same color, that same everything. But that's just something we'd have to look at.
So I also question, are you allowed to have a JV team without a varsity team?
You can start with a JV team.
Is there a period of time that that's allowed before you're forced to go to a varsity?
They would want us to try to go to the varsity within a few years. If we can't sustain it we would have to sustain it on our own for 5 years before we could co-op. So we'd really be able to we'd have to be able to run this for 5 years independently.
So that co-op is only available as a helper?
Aren't they changing that rule? That's what I heard.
That's my understanding.
It's going back, it hasn't been changed yet, so I have to go by what it is, but
But there's a big wave of let's push that co-op. That 5 years is a long time to sustain a program, and then look to co-op.
I thought it was the other way around, where the co-ops were encouraged to get things going, but then it was expected that you...
no, you have to actually run it on your own and then co-op.
But we wouldn't be able to run a JV program in the spring if we have an agreement with Hudson.
Yes.
So the only thing we could do would middle school be separate, or because we're one building, is it?
Because they're one building, we're co-op with them.
So I can have a question? So if you want to co-op, can they cut you from that team, so then you wouldn't have a team at all to play on? Do you automatically make that team?
Yeah, I don't know, they probably do have a cut if...
So then you're discouraging from them playing, period.
And since it's only one player at this point, could there be a conversation with Hudson to say, hey, we actually want to get a team going, we want to start something? Can we be allowed to?
Well, I think they're allowed to have more than one tryout, it's just, I don't know.
No, I think
No, they're saying to break the
mutually
co-op. The
release
problem
out
is
of
if we
co-op.
break the co-op, the next time we need to submit for a co-op,
Nobody's going to do it. I understand.
I don't know, I don't think we have to be, is it possible to have a conversation with them and say, hey, would we both be willing to mutually release out of this co-op since we
well,
have
it's the
one player?
MIA has to let me out of co-op.
Again, but could we have that conversation with
We
Hudson
could,
where we
but
have
they-
one?
we can. They
Right,
can
I don't know
us.
if that's a possibility, or once you put that into
We
paper.
can, but for this spring, I won't get the schedules are done.
Sure.
So the issue with the other thing is the student who plays for Hudson is a senior, so would not be able to play on a JV team. So we would be taking away his opportunity to
We wouldn't be
play
able
for
to
his
go
senior
with-
year.
If he's a senior, that actually kind of works, because we're bound to that co-op for this year anyways. Even
Right.
if we have a budget issue for this year,
Correct.
it works, because then that co-op goes away and that person graduates anyway, so.
Right.
Fresh slate for the following year.
So I think, you know, unless anybody has anything else to add, I think that it sounds like we're very much in support of this. I think this year obviously is a little too aggressive at this time, and we have other obstacles, so I think it would be good to take this time, the remainder of this year, to work on getting something for the next season, the following year.
And I would just like to add that I'd like to see an equal opportunity for girls to play. Even if we offered them an opportunity to co-op with another school, that would satisfy the having a sport available to them. So if we didn't have enough numbers to start our own team, we could potentially run our girls co-op so that they had the opportunity while we simultaneously had a team that we started for ourselves. And then the other is I love the sport. My son played through high school, recreationally in college. And I just know that we're a little bit strapped as far as having like one field that we share for so many things already. And
Well, there's nothing for the spring right now. So.
yeah, no, I know, but I know
although
that
the field does like to heal.
it does, yeah.
Time, so.
Like, 'cause I know like in some of your literature, it's like the teams have to be available to practice on the field 5 days a week. Like right now, our soccer team gets about 45 minutes a week on
No,
the
it's
field.
30 minutes, it's 30 minutes a week.
30 minutes a
I'll
week,
walk through.
and then they can only play games on it. So I just worry, and I worry because I want the field to be safe for all the kids, that you, because the Guardians are going to stop using it, and now you have the high school or the middle school team, and I just worry that at
So
some
the
point.
field would still be restricted to games and
What I
practice.
mean is, if you see the field, it's seen better days,
Oh, 100%.
but now you're adding another sport during a time when usually it replenishes itself. So I just would like us to look at the big picture so that the field remains safe and sustainable for the whole program.
So, just let me, so I completely agree with that. However, you know, my stance has always been, you know, I wanted to see a middle school baseball team here. People have always said field space, field space, field space. To me, I want that to be the last thing that gets in the way of getting more things to occur. So we're gonna do things differently by, you know, limiting the amount of, you know, the area that's used on the field, or, you know, using different fields. We have other options in town. You know, so we created that practice field to get the football team off of the outfield, the baseball field, which has helped, but, you know, sometimes we can maybe create some kind of rotation here. As long as you're not on the same spots over and over and over again, it's usually not so bad if you're moving around and things like that with some of these other areas. So I think we might have to get creative.
Well, obviously, we're very fortunate to have your connection to the fields and the parks, because you would know better than most people, you know, how that might look. But I just want to make sure that's part of the planning process, because, you know, these kids deserve a good, safe, sustainable field to be on for their time.
And just to address the option for the girls to play in a co-op, Tohoto has an outstandingly successful girls lacrosse program.
Yeah, they don't need us at this.
They've already reached out to players.
No, I've talked to their AD, they do not need us. I know that their coaches reached out, but they don't have the need.
Yeah, so, I mean, but
But
they're.
their boys need a program too, so that could be a good thing to say, because their Boylston boys play with the Guardians, that's where their feeder is, so.
Yeah.
So
They
there's
could,
definitely
if we start a
options.
program, they could have a program to come to.
So Tohoto has a big.
That was what I was gonna say, was that somebody reached out, you know, saying,
No,
coaches reached out.
they both, Tohoto started a girls and a boys JV team, and the JV boys team failed, and the girls team has thrived.
Right, so the potential for our girls to go there and maybe some of their boys to come here has some
It
promise.
has some promise. I haven't, I mean, obviously, he knows more than I do,
Yeah.
but, I mean, certainly, we've worked with them before.
Yeah, and
but
he has a
they're-
great relationship
Yeah.
with the AD there. I mean, in case you don't know, we co-op with them for tennis, golf, track, and football. And that's great, because they didn't have enough kids to have a tennis program. We welcome them to our program. You know, our golf, we went from state championship golf to having one golfer, so now we golf there. And those opportunities make makes sense as long as, you know.
He and I talk daily, we talked today about the process. As soon as his numbers are open, if he has room for girls, he doesn't think he does right now, but if he does, we would send some there. But we can't co-op the boys together until we run standalone for that period of time.
So, if, you know, so Boylston's failed, so that means they're not allowed to bring
They
in,
can go
try
out with
and co-op.
another
They
existing
have to go out,
program.
they can't co-op.
They go to
right?
Hudson.
They're gonna have to as well.
Yeah, so we could start our own and run for that, they're voting on what the period of time is, and then they could come to us, but you have to run standalone for that period of time.
All right, so I would say, you know, continue with all of the legwork and everything else that needs to be done.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank you on behalf of the school in general for all the work and the research and the presentation. It's no small feat, and I see how excited these kids are when they come to school wearing their lacrosse shirts, and nobody wants to take that from them.
No,
You know, we just want to figure out a way to make it work, and be successful at it. Not be in the position that Tohonto's in where they're like, you know, a little bit embarrassed, I think, that didn't work out.
So can I ask what our next steps would be? So for us, would we need to come back to another meeting in the spring, or is it something that you can vote on now to say, all right, this was for next year, just so we know what our next steps are, so we can make this work and make it successful?
I don't think we can vote tonight because we didn't have it listed as a voting
Okay.
item. But I guess I would like to see some kind of information on what the startup costs are, how many participants are in those grade levels that could play. Budget is kind of a very, very tight thing right now, so we really need to plan ahead of time, and the budgeting is starting now. So the sooner we can get dollar figures for what this is gonna cost to start up, the better. Amy, if you can assist in some of this stuff as far as
Yep, I can
who
get
we
like
would
the
play,
busing, the
how much
scheduling,
buses
all that.
would cost, and
Yep.
things like that. Then I think we can come back and we could
I understand.
vote on it. Then we just gotta figure out how to make it work.
Thank you.
So, before, just one other thing, so, coaches stipends, I know you said you had somebody who would volunteer their time, but the coaches stipends are contractual.
Yeah, is that
So
a
that,
volunteer allowed?
well, Ronnie did it for the
He
first,
volunteered.
yeah, he volunteered when the boys soccer started up, but we would just need to add this stipend into the teacher's contract, which we just did, so we would just need to figure that piece
Well, the
out.
stipends haven't been completed yet. So that's
Okay.
in process, so that's something that.
So that's just,
possibly
it's
could be
another
done.
piece that needs to be figured out because that's contractual. So we would need to figure that piece out. But just so you guys know, that we generally vote the budget at the March meeting.
No, it's the presentation.
The presentation is
The
March,
public hearing is
sorry,
March.
public. So just to have this stuff, kind of give you guys an idea of timeline for respect to what it would cost. And like we just said, Amy could figure out, like, if we were gonna play, what that kind of
Yeah,
cost.
I
would be
have the
participation.
typical spring schedule, so I can figure out the buses. I'll
Okay.
meet with the Tohoto AD tomorrow, I'll talk to him about his starter costs when he did it, so.
So I will say that to Jen's point about the March public hearing is probably when we should have that in advance of. So
Yeah.
we'll include it in that.
You didn't want to see us every month.
You're more than welcome to come every month.
Some of the greatest attendance at meetings we've had in a while.
Yeah.
I got a question.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna implement a JV team, and it's not gonna happen this fall, or in spring, it's gonna happen the following year, would the cutoff date for a JV player, grade-wise, gonna be 11, 10?
It's probably 11, I guess.
It's 11.
Okay.
And our numbers, the numbers that we calculated that are in the Guardians program, the highest age right now is in 8th grade. So
We do know of interest in these other grades as
Right.
well, but what we are calculating for the numbers are.
because they've aged out of Guardians, so we've lost those numbers as far as us being able to calculate
How
them.
long ago?
But
Did
they've
they age
aged,
out?
they've aged out of the town programs.
Do you know how long ago? Or how
I
many years
mean,
do you
some
know?
last year, some.
Last year, the year before, so they're still in the high school,
They age out at 8th grade.
Yes.
out of the Guardians program,
Guardians.
yeah.
So my son has played for the Guardians, and right now he's a sophomore. And last year, he expressed interest in playing again.
Great.
So he's also got a bunch of buddies that play football and other sports, and he doesn't want to play baseball. He will, but anybody that knows my kid, he's a big kid, you know. So he's got friends that are willing to play, and his kids that are willing to play in Boylston that they know. So when you implement this in 2 years, now those kids are gonna be gone from that program. You're gonna end the co-op with Hudson?
And we have another year with the co-op that we're in it, I can't,
This
it's this year.
So
That would be my concern.
So
Because
I
if
think
those kids wanna
the way
play,
I hear it is, they'll be juniors next year, right? So they
Right.
can play JV, but the following year, we would need a varsity team.
Right.
That's just, it's gonna be kind of how it goes, like.
Yeah. You have to, there's
Can
a
you get a waiver
level.
for a senior to be on JV? Because there's no program for them to play on?
I don't know.
Amy, can you answer that?
We can apply for it, I don't. It would really
Or
depend,
could they let them
everyone
see-
would have to agree,
Or we
and
do
that would
co-op.
mean every town would have to agree.
Or just the older kids can co-opt out when we can't offer them a program?
Can't
We can't co-op
Okay.
and have our own, we can't do both.
Okay.
Yeah, you can't do both. Right, right, yeah.
Is it possible to do, once we get closer to March and we worry about, I guess, the budget stuff squared away, would it be possible to do, I don't know, a petition or something to the students to see what the interest would be for the grades higher than 8?
Yeah.
I think it would be good to gauge interest, absolutely. And I mean,
In
if,
gym class or something, like, hey, would you be interested in playing lacrosse, you know, just what
I
the
think
interest would be, so we have.
Or even for a club.
I think that Amy, and we can start letting those kids know, like your son, that there's room on that Hudson squad.
Yeah.
yeah,
And knowing that the next year, we hopefully will have our own team. So you can play at high school level, and then the next year be part of the foundation that we build here. So that wouldn't have to be another gap year, is what I'm saying.
so you're gonna, so you would put in a JV, I'm all for a lacrosse team, don't get me wrong.
Sure.
But I would like my son to be able to play. So you're gonna start a JV team a year from the spring, and then you're gonna start in theory, and then start a varsity team the following year?
not necessarily, you can't promise that,
Exactly.
Bob.
Well, we said he would be alienated.
Well, that's where
I
I'm here.
understand, but you gotta start
I
somewhere.
understand that.
So they're starting with where they have the numbers. I mean, if we had kids coming out of the woodwork and we had the numbers to run a varsity team, maybe it could be looked at, but I mean, they're starting this.
I
And
understand that.
they have the kids, I mean, if we go this spring and they wanna do like a club or like a pickup lacrosse or whatever and see that, you know, a lot of kids show up and maybe get some interest and excitement going so that when we're out of the Hudson agreement, you know, who knows, if we have a ton of kids, we don't know what the possibility is, but I think for right now, we have to look at what we have, and what we have is people who are associated with this age group, who are willing to start with a JV team, and then that organically usually grows into a varsity team. I don't know that we could promise that John could do
I'm
both.
not looking for a promise.
Yeah.
He just said this. But I don't, the expectation isn't there for that to happen in reality.
How many kids, you know, carry on a roster for a high school team?
15 or 16? I'd say, but you can have like 22, like on our garden teams, we could have 22, their teams with even more. So you can have more, but I mean,
Minimum is 15, 16.
15, 16.
I'm just curious if the numbers would exist to have a varsity and a JV.
I
maybe
mean,
on the
it
first
might,
year,
it
second
absolutely
year.
could.
I've talked to lots of people and they're like, my kid wants to play, they've never played before, but they want to play.
Right, so if we
They
get
want
those
to do
numbers,
something.
it,
So that's why I suggested the petition, or petition may not be the right word, but if we could gauge the
Gauge
interest of the
interest, yeah,
kids
sure.
between 9 and really 11th grade, because we wouldn't be able to
Right.
12th grade. But if we could get between 9 and 11, who is interested in playing, whether you played or not, the Guardians don't have those numbers, because, like I said, we aged out in 8th grade.
Right.
So once they hit high school, we don't know. And if they have interest, if they've never even played with the Guardians, we wouldn't know that either. So if we could some way send out some sort of, hey, let's see how much interest we do have, then maybe we do have enough camps that we would be able to field 2 teams.
It's a great idea.
It's hard to
Do you
say.
know what the preference would be if your 6th, 7th, and 8th graders in Guardians to stay with Guardians or come to the high school?
They would do both.
They could do both. So it's the way the Guardians work is they play on Sundays. They don't play, it wouldn't interfere with school. You would do both. They run concurrent. So it's kind of like playing in a league at 4 kicks or one of those things. Guardians, obviously a little bit more established. It's like the town soccer and school soccer. You can do both, and that's what the Guardians would do. They would run parallel.
Okay.
We do have those tournaments in the spring that are on the weekend, so we would need to make sure those dates, because you have to do my tournaments.
Yeah, and Guardians, the nice thing is the fact that, we're here presenting it, and we have that ability to say to the schedule to reach out to our governing league
And the
make
great
things
thing
like
is
that happen.
that the Youth Lacrosse Association is very much aware of the school schedules and works very, very hard to grow the sport in that there is no conflict. So it's very rare that you would ever see a conflict already because they don't want that to happen. So they work together on that.
All right, excellent. So everybody good with next steps and where we're going? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Great job, guys. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for coming.
That brings us to community input, but we still have some community here.
Anything else you guys want to talk about?
And some warrants to approve. Can I get a motion for the payables warrants?
The thing, I'll make an approval for the payable warrants dated 10/17/2022, 10/24/2022, and 11/7/2022.
Can I get a second?
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Can I get a motion for the payroll warrants?
I'll make a motion to approve the payroll warrants dated 10/14/22, 10/28/22, and 11/10/22.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, subcommittee report, negotiation subcommittee. Haven't met, and actually, I guess the report is we're gonna hold off on meeting for a little bit until we have a schedule to talk about. Policy subcommittee?
We actually met right before this meeting, and we have some policies that we are going through, one being the athletic concussion policy, one being prevention education regarding the use of alcohol, tobacco, nicotine, and drugs by students, and the one being the policy on drugs and alcohol on school premises. Some of it needs language updating, and the policy on prevention education, there was a question about whether or not we should have a policy that talks about prevention education. It's a district-wide policy, but we don't do that piece down at Major Edwards. So, and most of what's in that policy is covered by the high school health for the curriculum. Thank you. So we don't know whether or not that policy needs to exist as a district policy because we don't disseminate that information to our students at Major Edwards. So we're going to go over that and see whether or not that policy just needs to be removed and be more of handbook language specific to the high school.
Is it possible to just update the policy to reflect the middle high school, or?
Those policies
Our district-wide, yeah. I think it gets confusing when you have all your policies and you start picking which ones apply to which
Yeah,
building.
that makes sense.
So, we'll take a look at that.
Okay. Do we have a timeline on when we would see these for a vote, or?
maybe January?
All right, with that, we'll move on to communications and reports time with Major Edwards.
Thank you. This month we've had some more fun activities that I'd like to share, some engaging activities and holiday fun. We had our annual 5th grade plant project. 5th grade students created their plant projects, and we had the entire school got to go up to the 5th grade and kind of take a tour of the plant gallery, which was great to see. Mrs. Conway in the science class did a great job with that. Students also had a chance to celebrate Halloween, participating in the parade and the trunk or treat that was sponsored by PTA, so we'd like to thank the PTA for that. We changed the format slightly this year with the cooperation of the WB Police. They closed down the street, making the road accessible for all students to participate. It was great to see them all dressed up and a lot of families. I don't know if it's because it was spread out or whatnot, but on the road it just seemed like it was a lot more in attendance this year than previous years. Just want to take a moment to thank the fire department, EMTs, and the police department for their participation, kind of making it a little bit more special, having the trucks participating as well. This month we are focusing on kindness. Teachers offer learning opportunities and discussions about being kind with students. On Monday we began our annual Thanksgiving collection for families in need. We make donations, specific food items to make up our turkey feast that will help out families in need in West Boylston, but also for the Joseph's Project. That collection goes to Friday, November 18th. Tomorrow at Major Edwards, we are inviting families for our first International Festival of Gratitude, which takes place in our gym from 4 to 6 p.m. Festival is an opportunity to come together as a community and share our favorite holidays, foods, family traditions, and a chance for us to enjoy some the wonderful diversity that makes up our community. And then on Friday, November 18th, we will have our second community meeting for students, K through 5. Students will spend time sharing what kindness means to them. We will have fourth graders sing some songs about kindness. And additionally, Mrs. Okala, our ELL teacher, will be teaching students about international festivals from other countries and about the American Heritage Month. And lastly, we will hand out some awards or certificates for in recognizing the students, one from each classroom that exemplifies what it means to be kind. And we may even have a little visit from our Lexia the Lion again, for the kids that are achieving at higher levels. Just a couple important dates for this month. Tomorrow, the marking period ends, and next week, our report cards will be issued on Wednesday, November 16th. As I mentioned before, an International Festival of Gratitude, 4 to 6 p.m. tomorrow. And then on Monday, November 21st, we have a half day for students. The conferences, family conferences are 4 to 7 p.m. And Tuesday, a half day, the 22nd, will be conferences from 12 to 3. That's all I have for you guys.
Thank you.
It was a nice change with the holiday, the Halloween parade.
Yeah.
Well received, I saw some pictures, it was really, really great. You know, make a great tradition and better. It was really nice.
We have to continue that.
Yeah.
It actually went better than we tried. It was nice.
Chris?
Thank you so much. As Alex mentioned, we have the Thanksgiving food drive that we have done. We have tables out in the hallway, and beginning with our advisory next week, the students are going to be getting together with their class to put together that food basket donations so that we can participate in that district-wide wonderful event. The middle school parent-teacher conferences is scheduled for November 17th. The information sent out in my written communication to parents in grades 6, 7, and 8 about how the format will work at each grade level. Some of the teams have offered extended conferences and Wednesday afternoons to accommodate working parents. So a lot of work going into that at this time. Nice to be able to do it personally. Mr. Maha referenced in talking about subcommittees. We have been forming a committee of staff and administrators to look at building schedule options. Because we had a productive meeting yesterday where we brought forward a model that we looked at with different members of the school community, different department chairs, all language, special education, fine arts, and we feel like we'll be ready to present that to the larger school leadership team, which is all of the department chairs and team leaders and so forth. And I shared a copy of that draft also with Mr. Martin, who will also share it with members of the committee so that we can show you like what we're thinking in terms of what a new schedule would be modeled for the high school could potentially look like. Very exciting. Gives a lot of, a lot of positive things I think that our kids will benefit from. So looking forward to sharing that and discussing it with you in weeks and months. Of course, our ultimate goal is to have a sustainable schedule moving forward that supports our vision of the graduate and meets the goals of our district's strategic plan. I included an example of some of the work that our other committee is doing, which is this student handbook committee. We've been going through, we've done 2 complete meetings with the handbook as a committee. In fact, one we did today. We are making note of things that are missing, like there wasn't any information about MCAS. We thought that's such an important part of the students' lives, there should be some information about it. So I included an example in the board for you to take a look at. Just when we do testing, what it looks like, etc. And other areas, the committee members have asked me to update some of the language to reflect the changes in Massachusetts laws that recently got into effect. For example, that impact how administrators utilize suspensions, etc. And the committee wanted me to just sort of let you know that their ultimate goal is to take all of the policies and information and reformat it in a way that's more intuitive, so that it's based on like subjects that are important to parents and students, as opposed to it's sort of like alphabetical right now. It's like alphabet soup, like you can go from bus passes to bowling to basketball, which is interesting, but not all that helpful. So we're going to focus on the big picture, when we do the curriculum, big standards, power standards. This is going to have power standards, and then the information will flow nicely. And we want to make an interactive version so that any parent that goes on the school website, they don't just see like a PDF, they click links. Everything just drops down so that it's something that students would actually go into and answer their own questions, rights and responsibilities. I'd like to just thank Jeff Cruz and my colleagues for being leaders on that project. Because they both, although it's multi-day, they both committed to making this useful. So we're looking forward to giving you some examples in our next meeting. I can outline what the new formatting might look like. We're hoping that's all. Obviously, the goal is to present you with a finished document that will say, here's the old document, here are all the changes that we've made, suggested, here's what we hope the new document will look like, and then have a chance to say, you like it. So, that's all. Thank you.
Just one comment on the scheduling meeting. So I think Jen and I are supposed to be part of that group. So if we could get a draft of what you discussed and update on
I
future
have a
meetings.
copy of that, but I can forward that to you.
Yeah, and sort of reach out to you.
Yeah, that's fine, but I think it would be good if we knew in advance what the meetings are so we can attend.
I think I invited you to one yesterday.
I didn't receive it, but
I had said it was a little bit,
Okay.
yesterday and the day before, yes.
okay.
I think that's great, absolutely. And I also just wanted to say, we appreciate your support of 249 districts. Based on the numbers, it looks as though we're going to take the next step, which is to have a meeting with students and parents to talk about, what the details are going to be. We're able to get a sufficient number in order to make trips. So we're pretty excited, yeah. The kids are excited. I'm still trying to figure out where to go. Thank you.
Any other questions for Chris?
Just like it. So, I mean, that's something that we definitely wanted to see happening, and it looks like we have found a way to,
Progress pretty low, so we're happy to see some improvement, but we hope it gets a lot better.
I mean, if you look at the numbers from last year to this year, I mean, October of '21, if I'm reading this right, there were 459 tardies. October of '22, 220. So, I mean, that's pretty substantial.
Those are the unexcused ones.
Those are the unexcused. And then students with 5 or more tardies last year, there were 51 of them. This year, there's only 13 of them. So there's a lot of kids who don't enjoy spending their afternoons in the cafeteria, is what that tells me.
Right.
So I do still think we're having some issues with kids walking in, you know, they're late, but they have their Dunkin' Donuts, which means if they didn't stop at Dunkin' Donuts, they could be on time. So perhaps that just needs to also be like, we're not having Dunkin' Donuts in a walk class. So that's my opinion on that one. I mean, I just, if you want to stop at Dunkin' Donuts, you need to leave 10 minutes earlier so you actually can be on time to school.
Build it into your routine.
Build it in. That is correct. But I appreciate the fact that we are making them responsible for being here on time, because that's a life lesson and a life skill, actually, so.
Thank you, I agree. I think that we're working on it, and hopefully it's stable.
No, it shows.
All right, thank you. Sarah?
I have that.
Doesn't
Boy,
make her
I
out. Excellent, that's good. Roger?
I don't have the whole lot either, so.
Wow.
We do have a monthly expenditure report for the month of October. And as you can see, we still have a positive unencumbered balance. That unencumbered balance is really not a true reflection of our actual financial standings, because it's still a work in progress. As was mentioned prior, we're still working, pretty much the staffing is all set except for the stipends, okay, that we have, that we're still working contractually with those to put them into what position they're in between academic, student activities, and so forth and so on. And once we have the actual numbers on those, we can encumber those amounts. But that'll be a truer reflection of where we're actually at this point in time. As far as the facilities go, well, as far as on the budget goes too, we're planning on a few deficits. We had made some more transfers on our budget items that have been reflected in here because we made them in the month of November. This is through October, so they will reflect on the next month. To correct some of the deficits, the small deficits that were in there. There's some others that we are planning on to account for down the road, as such as based on our custodial situation. In those accounts, we're going to have a deficit or two there, which we will account for with a transfer on it. As far as the facilities go, not a whole lot going on there. We do have a major update program going down next week on our elevators in both buildings. The state will require a major mandate. Actually, the country has something required, a major mandate for reprogramming our elevators and putting new systems in there or whatever. So we have that on hold.
Any funding for that, or they just want?
No, it's approximately $6,000 per building.
Perfect.
So they're saying, just go, you gotta do this, but we're not gonna give you any money for it.
State of Massachusetts has to do it.
Okay.
They give you to your next inspection, but we had put it in earlier as building maintenance, okay, to get done over the summer, but because of the shortage of equipment to do this fix, whatever they have to do on it, it's fire related, it's a bunch of different things on that end of it. We had to wait till now, and they're going to do it next week for us, which we'll get that's all we got on there. Budget time, as you'll see, and I think this was in the packet.
Yes, it is.
Budget timeline, that's our work in progress right now on our end. It's funny that you just turn around and all of a sudden we're at
Just
.24
like
now.
that.
We're working out of. Timeline is pretty much the same as probably the superintendent will mention on it. We're meeting with staff next week to streamline a procedure for forms and so forth and so on. We'll bring all the players into it and see if we can get forms and documents and procedures set up that we can make it easier for all the vested interest, all the vested parties involved in it and go forward from there. We will see how we end up with it, because we already have some notices on costs that are going to be increasing major by next year, so it's going to be a fun year, let's put it that way. That's all I have, other than we're looking at some grants too for energy, okay, that came out for K-12 school facilities, energy improvemits, okay? And you have to be a rural community to do that. Population under 10,000, I actually looked up the population of West Boylston the other day. 7,877 people, so we qualify. That's a 2020 census, so.
If we ever go over by a few, we need to get a waiver, because there's a few that aren't here by choice. That they should be pulled out. AKA the jail.
Okay.
Because they do count that number.
They do they?
We will
The residents of
research,
West Boylston.
they count, okay.
Really?
We will research grants for energy related, which would be a new boiler or across the street at Major Edwards. That's where we stand right now, we're just looking into it, just came out
So
Saturday.
do you want
There's
to touch
500
on
million.
the recent update from the MSBA?
I've got that one coming.
He's got that one coming on. That's where we're going down this road too, any road we can go down with capital to relieve the cost of it, so we'll get that too. There's 500 million in that that's supposed to be distributed out, starting, and actually a lot of the things come out in the end of 22, so 2022, so we'll get that. We'll see what we can pull out of that, if anything. That's it.
Thanks, Roger. Any questions for Roger?
No.
All right. Mr. Martin?
Thank you. I'll elaborate on a few of the things that Roger had mentioned. Last month, we received notice from the Office of Administration and Finance that they were granting out-of-district placement schools, residential schools, the okay to increase in the inflation tuition increase for the next fiscal year from 14 to roughly 30%. So the impact on us is about $218,000. So we got, that was about 6 weeks ago we got notice on that. 2 weeks ago we received notice from the Mass Superintendent's Association and the Mass Business Administrators Association that they have a joint effort to address these inflation increases with the legislature. Earlier this week I did some letters to both Representative O'Day and Senator Chandler detailing the impact that that would have on us as a small district with that estimated $218,000 increase. For example, over the last 13 years, the average increase has been under 2%. And there's a little bit of an uproar that some of these schools are offering $10,000 hiring bonuses that would be coming out of these funds, and obviously we're all strapped for help now. So a little bit of an uphill playing field. We'll see how this evolves over the next couple of months.
You might want to reach out to Senator-elect Kennedy.
Yes. Yes.
Place.
So those were sent earlier this week. Another surprise that we received over the weekend that would impact our district improvement plan was that the Mass School Building Authority on November 2nd voted to pause the 2023 Accelerated Repair Program, which was going to be on the forefront of our strategic plan and our district improvement plan. I did sit in a webinar yesterday morning for a little detail explaining that, and again, the inflation, construction costs have escalated, so they voted to table that $75 million that they had allotted to fund that to go back to the core programs that they've already approved that are now over budget. They said that next year they would reopen it, but for right now, I would not be seeking a statement of interest from the committee and the Board of Selectmen, which would need to be on their December or January's agenda. It seems like that would be the weak point. I did inquire if our ADA needs might move us up the ladder. That really would not. The criteria remains the same. For core building projects, you would have to have an unsafe building condemned. severe overcrowding currently, loss of accreditation, or potential severe overcrowding. We're not following with any of those right now.
Right.
So I did contact the town administrator to let her know that I might be seeking the statement of the approval to submit a statement of interest, and we will be pursuing other avenues to fund the new boiler at Edwards, which really remains priority one right now for capital improvements in the district. Also, earlier, as Mr. Fournier touched upon, a change in discipline requirements. On November 9th, schools will, actually today, will need to be in compliance with the new amended version of Mass General Law, Section 7137, 3/4, which would note prior to suspending or expelling a student, principals or their designee will be required to use alternatives to removal, mediation, restorative justice, conflict resolution, for examples, and must document the use and results of such alternatives. The new statute applies to both in and out-of-school suspensions. Exemptions may apply if the principal documents specific reasons what such alternatives would be unsuitable, or documents the student's continued presence in school would pose specific concerns or serious harm upon other people in the school. Schools must also implement programs to re-engage students in learning, trauma-sensitive learning, positive behavioral interventions, and supports. It should be noted that the new limitations on suspensions or expulsions does not impact the principal's authority to suspend or expel students for statutory offenses involving weapons, drugs, assaults on school staff, or felony charges. I did provide the principals updated documentation from our legal counsel with a variety of stipulations in terms of what would need to be addressed for in-school and out-of-school suspensions, and they can tailor those to those needs. Handbooks will go to review to the firm over the summer before the August retreat to make sure all of our regulations are in accordance to the new statute that is coming from the legislature, not the Department of Ed.
So does that, do we have to take any actions that you have, because it's just so immediate now on that, as far as handbooks and policies and things go?
I don't know if it needs to go right now. We do have updated guidance from the firm. As I said, the principals do have those letters. I think it's safe that we need to implement that now, and then in the ongoing handbook review that Chris is going and Alex will be doing with his school council in the spring, and we just bring it forth in the summer as a tradition.
All right, I was just concerned that there might be some kind of contradictory language or inconsistencies in what the precedents, well, obviously this takes priority, right, but just want to make sure that we kind of cover it.
Yes, of course.
Essentially, like in a nutshell, anything that's a felony, you can continue to suspend kids for, it's very rare, but it gives you that, assurance that the rest of your kids are safe. The handbook violations, the kids, kids steal something, you can't just put them on school, you gotta do some authoritative justice, counseling,
Detentions, you can still use detentions.
timeouts up to a half day. So we talked about it with the staff, and we're in decent shape. We're very fortunate with the kind of kids that are doing recent days. So, good luck to what you see this.
Also, the late additions is the updated FY '24 budget timeline. A couple shifts by a week or two here with some review, but the process will remain pretty traditional. And there's an updated school messenger and school closure. The change in that is really when it comes to central office staff. Previously, we would have staff report by 10:30 unless we were in a state of emergency was declared. We're trying to coordinate with the town a little bit more this year with the snow policy, and town offices, they're not going to report to work. The weather is prohibitive, and it doesn't make sense to have office staff come in anymore. Everyone can work from home, everyone is skilled at that at this point, so that's really the only shift there, that central office staff and building secretaries can work from home. Also included is a district improvement plan for 22-23. Most of this is building upon components of the strategic plan. I did make a shift, and I don't know if it's up to discussion because we did touch upon it last week about the student learning goal. I I bumped that up just by 1% to 8% from 7. As you know, we held firm at 5 for a number of years. Obviously, seeing the results, I don't think 8% is too much of a risk to not take, but I didn't want to go much further either because we don't know how the state's going to recalibrate MCAS down the road. That's always a question mark. So I didn't want to set everyone up on there. School brains, excuse me, if those of you who participated in strategic planning are probably familiar with the hindrance the school brains curriculum submission process has been through the years. I combed through a number of different subject areas, and some of the input goes back to 2014. A lot of it isn't current. I went through the science tabs and had Caitlin Conway review the K through 5 submissions that were in there to see if it paralleled what they're currently doing. It's completely out of sync. So at this point, it just seems to behoove us to just start from scratch. I've had Eric Bokankwitz contact School Brains to see how we can recalibrate that system. Everyone is using the same curriculum mapping template. I really like, hopefully they're going to be able to set up a similar spreadsheet so we're not going to have to be doing cumbersome work that people can't access. So people will be going to use folders in Google Drive for the time being to work on their submissions. And then hopefully through the course of the spring and summer, School Brains will be able to open up in a more user-friendly manner, and we can get that going finally. Traditional curriculum work is underway in science. Elementary is on pretty solid ground right now. I did meet with Jody Howard and Caitlin the other day, and we're going to have a follow-up meeting on Wednesday to just kind of iron out their tasks for the coming year. And I'll get going with that shortly, and that should be relatively easy since everyone has adopted big ideas, K through 12. So the goal is to have that updated by May. Continuing with benchmark assessments, STAR assessments, traditional programs that we've continued with the teacher induction program and our partnership with Assumption will continue. I am hoping to appoint a district-wide curriculum review team with a district-wide curriculum coordinator. The strategic plan had that as a December date. I'm pushing that out into the spring as I'm looking to fund the curriculum coordinator part-time position out of next year's grants. And I touched upon the strategic goal to determine options for improvement, repair, and replacement of school facilities. Obviously, I was focused on submitting a statement of interest before that curveball arrived over the weekend. So that's going to have to be reassessed on how we're going to fund that boiler and our capital needs. And we'll be submitting our 10-year capital need plan to the town by over the course of December. I believe that will be due. Compliance with policies. We'll continue to review and update district policies that need revision or updating, which was touched upon tonight. The budget request, as Mr. Pompion talked about, we'll begin that with our administrative team next Wednesday. Block scheduling is currently under review, and hopefully we'll have a proposal by December, and we can work that through the budget process and have something by January, ideally. And we have some transitions in our central office after many years of swirling rumors about our esteemed partner over there, Mr. Pompion. It looks like he's heading out the door in June. So we're going to be looking at transitioning a business manager into his seat, I'm hoping by May. And I would like to recommend an appointment Title I coordinator at Edwards to kind of learn how to transition of that, learn the grants, and do some training. And again, I touched upon a recommendation for a part-time curriculum coordinator this spring as well. If you have to answer any questions, then I would be able to.
Is the plan okay to vote based on the accelerated repair? Are we going to?
I'm going to have to revise that, but I mean, that could be, as we look at the, my goals when you assess me over the summer, we could probably work on the language there as well. We're going to have to do something, so it might be.
Yeah, I guess it needs to be done. I just want to make sure the language isn't reflective to the accelerated repair. And maybe if it is, maybe we alter the language to be more consistent with the plan. That's all.
Okay.
So, does it specifically say that? Or?
It does, but it also does note
Probably the.
pursue capital needs in accordance with the 10-year capital plan.
Okay,
We just rolled it in there.
okay, that's fine.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
And if I could get a motion to vote to approve the 2022-2023 district improvement plan?
I'll make a motion to vote to approve the 2022-2023 district improvement plan.
Can I have a second?
A second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All right, school committee updates. Nancy, you have anything you want to share?
No, nothing, thanks.
Jason?
Just want to wish the Lions football team best of luck tomorrow night against Wacona, and then also our Friday night. Thank you.
Did you have Friday off, Coach?
I do. But also want to wish the ladies of the varsity cheer squad good luck at regionals this weekend, this Sunday at Shrewsbury.
Excellent, thank you.
Well, thank you.
Jen?
Just think about it, I'll pass.
With that, I have nothing to add. I will take a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
I get a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.